Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hello Adulting, the podcast. I'm your host, Shanique. The discussion on today's podcast episode does tackle the topics of suicide, depression, and mental health. If you are someone that you know needs assistance with mental health, you can contact the Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Hotline at 888 New Life. That's 888 639 5433. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Hello Adulting, the podcast. I am here, fresh faced and ready to have this discussion with you, featuring my guest, American author Jacquelyn Phillips, who wrote the book Comfortably Uncomfortable: The Road to Happiness Isn't Always Paved. Jacquelyn and I are talking about her book, of course, but we also have a very candid and comfortable conversation about her journey of self awareness and her self-care practice, and any advice that she has for any one of us who are on a similar journey. So get comfortable, get something to drink, and relax, and let's have this conversation together. All right, hi Jacquelyn, welcome to Hello Adulting podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
No problem, you're welcome. So let's start off with a little chat about you. Who is Jacquelyn? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a mom, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a seeker of happiness, and someone who's trying to live their life to the fullest because for the last 37 years, I hadn't been.
Seeker of happiness. What does happiness look like to you? I mean, it's you're seeking it, so you haven't found it, but how do you know when you've gotten it?
It's an evolution because as we grow and evolve and change, things that make us happy will grow and evolve and change. Right now, quiet time makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Being outdoors makes me happy. That will be very different come summertime when it's 120 here and it's miserable. But right now, being outdoors makes me really happy. So it fluctuates. So when something isn't making me happy anymore, I stop and evaluate and see what else will make me happy.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. My listeners will know that for the last couple of weeks, I took a break from the podcast and I took a break from social media. So quiet time was actually what was making me happy. And Netflix was what was making me happy. Binge watching Netflix, getting up on the weekends and I don't have a podcast to edit. I just can lay and watch Netflix for as long as I want to. That was what was making me happy. So I completely relate when you say, happiness, it changes. It's never a destination. It's always a journey, I think. So we're here to talk about your
Oh,
book
absolutely.
and your journey of self-care, self-awareness, mental health, all of that. So when I started reading your book, the first line caught me off guard. And I see you face palm. Yeah, no, I think it was raw honesty, and it was not what I was expecting to be the very first lines I read. So I'm gonna share that with you. Want me to share that? Or you want them to be surprised too?
No, I don't mind sharing it, and I wrote it for that exact reason because I didn't want it to be a fluff piece. I wanted to
Yeah,
be from the get-go, this is what it is, and this is where I'm at, and come take this trip with me. But to do the trip, you have to know who I am, and that
yeah.
was the way to do it.
The first lines, guys, the very first lines in her book is it says, "I'm a piece of shit." And I was like, whoa, okay, this is what we're doing today. And then the next line that follows it up says, or at least I was. And from that point on, I kind of felt like, okay, I like where this is going, because we've already started off with, listen, I don't have it all together. And I feel like a lot of these books kind of tend to do that. I have it all together and have my life all together. So I appreciated that. So if that's where we start the book, I think it's only fair that that's where we start the conversation. So you say that you were a piece of shit, but you're no longer that. So let's talk about the beginning and how you got to where you were 2 years ago.
So I was taking the world as scorched earth. I expected that everyone was out to hurt me or harm me or use me or abuse me, and to prevent that, I just kept everyone at arm's length, and I would hurt people so that they couldn't hurt me, and I would keep people away and just eliminate opportunities. I like the scorched earth approach because you can't scorch something without scorching yourself. And I was hurting myself because I was hurting others out of fear of hurting myself. It was this ugly cycle of just abuse towards myself and others. And I finally got to a breaking point where I decided that that was not an existence that I needed anymore. Because if I was going to keep going that route, there really was no reason to be here because nobody was benefiting from my existence.
So if that was your mode of operation for a long time,
Oh, a
what
very long
happened?
time.
What happened to let you realize, okay, I can't do this anymore. I need to change.
Everything felt fake.
Mm,
I had the work mask that I put on. I had the at-home happy mask. I had the my friends have no idea how absolutely miserable my existence is because they think I've got it all together. And I don't. And it's exhausting to keep that facade going year after year and at this point, decade into decade. It's not
mm-hmm.
healthy. And I decided that it was time to, heal that off and show the world who I was and start to rebuild that person into somebody that I was proud to be around.
Yeah. So you were wearing several masks in your words. What did that look like in your day-to-day life?
On the outside, I looked successful and happy and pretty and put together, and I was super mom and super business owner and super wife. And I resented everyone for it because I didn't know how to take it off and be authentic and say, I need help, or this
Mm-hmm.
isn't right, or I don't feel good, or I'm not in the mood to be your mom right now. I need a day. I'm still your mom, but I just need a break from being mom.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that it was like a eager to please kind of situation, like you pleasing everybody?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's so part of my problem was that I had dealt with my existence with all of these really maladaptive behaviors. So I learned that if I make people happy, people like me. And I had to keep making people happy. And you can't pour from an empty cup with bullet holes in it. There's there's nothing to hold.
Mm-hmm.
And when you give so much of yourself and there's nothing left to give and there's no resource to refill you, you're not helping anybody. And it builds anger and frustration.
Yeah. So you got to the point now where you realize that something is wrong and I need to make a change. So how do you tackle that? How do you get out of yourself and how do you see what's the first right move to make in fixing that?
The first right move is just to be really vulnerable and just to come out and say I'm miserable like this and I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to fix this by myself. So I need to find help. I need to find people who will help me figure out how to get rid of my bad behaviors and get rid of my bad attitude and move forward in a positive, healthier way. Finding a life coach was the best decision I ever made.
That was the first thing that you did?
Yeah. Because
Mm-hmm.
I know how lazy I am because I'm busy
Mm-hmm.
and self-care and self-building. It's like you said, there's Netflix. There's so many other
Yeah.
things competing for my attention. I have a son, I have a business, I have a home. I want 5 minutes to myself to play Candy Crush. Like there's not enough hours in the day unless you have someone holding you accountable. So by
Mm-hmm.
hiring a life coach, I had someone who could see through the crap and go, "You're lying. You're being fake. Stop doing that. Let's figure out why you do that. And I'm going to hold you accountable every single day until you break this habit."
Mm-hmm. So being someone that was so cloaked up and protective and wanting to do everything to please everybody else, I don't know if you want to share a little bit when you first got to that very first meeting with that life coach. I can imagine it must have been hard for you to admit to yourself, the state that you were in. So how did you approach that very first meeting?
Well, anything that I invest money in, I'm going to put 110% in. And
Mm-hmm.
so instead of looking at it as someone who is going to judge me, I looked at it as I'm paying for a service. I can't get the full service if I don't give 100% of who I am. So the nice thing about it is that this is a professional who was able to direct the conversation to start to identify things in my life that I was putting weight on and value in that were actually harming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a thing in Jamaica where getting help, any sort of mental, it's that there's a stigma on it when you seek help for you're feeling stressed, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling lost, there's a stigma attached to it. So there are a lot of times persons don't want to reach out for help because they don't want anybody to know that they're going through anything. What would be your advice to someone like that?
There's 7 billion people in the world. There's no way you're the only person that's in a rough patch. And the only way you can get out of it is to bring in an outside resource. The Suez Canal is currently blocked. They're not expecting the container ship to move itself. They brought in help. There's no problem that another professional can't help you with. And it's not anyone else's place to judge your situation because they're not in your shoes. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help.
Yeah, yeah. And mental health played a very big role in your journey up, and it played well, I guess bad mental health played a role in your journey down as well. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about a low point that you can remember, and then how you picked yourself back up to get to a higher point in your mental health.
Absolutely. So I had a very traumatic childhood. And because of that, I developed PTSD. Um, PTSD is very similar to depression, but it's more chronic. It has acute triggers and it manifests in different ways. So for me, I was always looking for the next threat. Everywhere I went, I was looking for a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I never let anybody in. So when I was at my lowest and I was contemplating depression, or not depression, but suicide, I I turned inward and I avoided everyone around me and I completely became reclusive because it's scary and I didn't want anyone to know because I may lose my son or I may lose my job or I may lose friends or family members by telling them that I don't want to exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That was my lowest point. Bringing it back up, a lot of what kept me down was that I didn't love myself. I didn't love who I was. I didn't love anything about me. I thought I had no value.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said I was a piece of shit because shit has no value. I mean, yes, it's fertilizer, but you're not seeking it out. Taking the time to build value in myself built my self esteem and it built my happiness and gave me better mental health and it made me stronger so that when I did encounter things that were a knife wound, I could stop and go, okay, well, it's a nick, but I'm not bleeding out. So let's pack it, let's get stronger, let's keep moving forward. Resiliency comes as you continue to practice and exercise it. And I call it a muscle because you don't develop it overnight. It's something that constantly requires attention. If you want to build big biceps, you have to eat right, you have to exercise, you have to do different types of exercises.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with mental health. You have to get good sleep, you have to eat good food, you have to practice every single day to keep that mental uppity and just to have that strength to keep moving even when it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Not every day is easy for me. I will be the first one to tell you some days are hard. And the best I can do is a shower and taking care of my kid. And that's okay because
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow I get a new chance to be 10% better or even 2% better. As long as I'm not going backwards, I'm still moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. It's tough, when someone is at that low point where you think the best thing you can do is no longer exist. And, it's a tough point. I can only imagine that it would be a tough point to be at. And for you to pull yourself out of that and to be here and to write this book to help someone else, it's remarkably strong, it's remarkably strong. So, of course, there must have been something to pull you out of that reverie. You must have been at the bottom of it. It felt like you were at the lowest point, and something pulled you out of that, and wanted to get better for that thing or that person. What was that top priority for you?
My son,
Mm-hmm.
he, he doesn't know he's 14 right now.
Yeah.
He saves me daily. He's the reason I get up every morning and the reason I push hard and the reason the book exists because he believed in me and he
Mm-hmm.
thinks I'm magic. And how could I prove him wrong? I have to because he believes in me more than anyone or anything ever has.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't let him down.
Yeah. Yeah. That will do it. That will do it. A child that looks up to you, looks at you with those eyes, and to them, you are the best person in the world. That will do it.
How can you not want to be the best person in the world when the person in front of you that you made looks at you and says, "You can do it, mom.
Mm-hmm.
I know you can do it. You're magic." Well, hell yeah, I'm magic. Let's go.
Yes. Yes, yes. Look, even if somebody's not saying that to you, look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you're magic and you can do it, right? So my next
Positive affirmation is strong.
Oh yes, it is. It is. Your self-talk is extremely important. And um, I found that I was having this conversation with someone once, and we were talking, well, I was talking about affirmations, and you know, he was skeptical and he said, oh, you get up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you tell yourself that, you're great and you're amazing and you think that's gonna do anything. And I was like, yes, it will. Whatever you want to call it, it is good. It is affirmations. It is something that's gonna help you. And a long while after, I remember we were driving and he was like, I don't think I can make it. Like we were trying to squeeze something simple. We are trying to squeeze through a tight spot. And he was like, I wonder if I can make it through that. And he's like, of course I can make it through that. You're a big driver. You can drive through there. And I'm like, I looked at him and I was like, like that's an affirmation, right? It's like you just boosted yourself up. And he's like, well, I'm not calling it that. But of course, everybody do that sometime. Everybody needs to do it. And I was like, that's what I was trying to explain to you. That's whatever you want to call it. Whatever you have, you tell yourself sometimes you don't know how you're going to go through it, but you go through it. So yeah, whatever people want to call it. Some people don't like to label it affirmations, but that positive self-talk, it is sometimes what makes the world of a difference. The world of a difference. So let's get to your book a little bit now. So you said in the book that improving communication with your husband was a key to your journey. So how did you do that?
I got really honest, like uncomfortably honest,
Mm-hmm.
and it was awkward. Um, to let my guard down and be vulnerable and be honest about things that I liked, things that I didn't like, things about him that I didn't like, that I would tolerate, and it would leave me feeling resentful and angry. But I also had to be open to the fact that he was going to return those to me.
Mm-hmm.
But because we let the guard down and we had the conversations and we were just brutally, ugly, honest with each other, you know, there's no more mystery anymore. There's no, is he upset at me? Is she upset with me? Did I do something wrong? Because that's not existing in a relationship if you're constantly worried that the other person is upset with you. Just call it out like you see it. Hey, you did something that really upset me. Here's why. Can we do something different? Or is there something that we could have done differently so that you don't end up leaving me upset?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always been a big proponent of open communication as well. I think if you talk things out, if you think your partner is upset with you, how about you just ask, are you upset with me? Instead of thinking that he is or he isn't, just ask.
But at the same time, you also have to realize that we also perceive things differently than other people.
Hmm.
The only thing that you can control is your reaction. So you have
Yeah,
to kind of pull back and look at the situation and say, is he upset with me or is there something else that's bothering him that I'm interpreting as him being upset?
yeah.
Because 99% of the time, he's not upset. It's all in my head. I've
Hmm.
built it up that he's upset. And if I stop and I really rationally think about it, he's upset because he had to work overtime or he's got a headache. It's
Hmm.
not because I didn't make dinner perfect or because I forgot to shave my legs.
Hmm.
Something else is bothering him. I didn't do anything. And I built it all up in my head that, oh, he's so mad at me and I'm in trouble.
Hmm.
No, you're not.
Yeah, yeah. The stories that we create in our heads to rationalize things that we
Yes.
experience or things that we see. Yeah, yeah. That will do it. So you also had to remove people. So they were your core people, your husband, your child, that was a part of your why and your reason for wanting to get better. But you also had to remove people. You had to stop some of the habits that you had. You had to remove some things from your life in on your journey of, getting better. What were some of those things and who were some of those people that you had to remove?
I had to, we'll go superficial first. I had to remove a lot of social media, which as a business owner is a double edged sword because I have to participate in it, but I don't have to let it consume me. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
very mindful now about social media use. And when I start to feel inadequate or uncomfortable or sad or envious, that's when I know to shut it down.
Mhm.
And I've got about a 10-minute duration. I can get through about 10 minutes, and after that I start to feel less than. And I'm like, "All right, cool. It's time to let it go."
Mhm.
But that was another one of those, repetitive action things. I had to become keenly aware. We'll go a little deeper. I had to remove my parents from my life.
Mm.
And there's a lot of familial obligation when it comes to your parents. And growing up, we look at our parents and we think that they are superheroes.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they are doing the absolute best that they can with the knowledge and the skill set that they have. But sometimes it's just not healthy. And being guilted into relationships and being, you know, verbally abused because you're not bending the knee, if we want to go Game of Thrones, uh, to what that other person's will is, even if it crosses your boundaries, is
Mhm.
not healthy. By cutting them out, it hurt. It was hard. And with my mom, I had to do it in steps. And I'm happier now building the family that I have than clinging to a family that left me feeling less than.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, preserving my boundaries and knowing what they are and what I'm willing to bend the knee for and sticking to that, it gives me confidence. I did get a lot of backlash and I did get a lot of, hate for making the choices that I did. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to live with the consequences of not maintaining those boundaries. And it just became easier to hold steady to the boundaries and deal with the slight than to constantly be feeling like I was being run over by a Mack truck every time I had to interact with them.
Yeah. Mhm. So what about some of the habits that you had to drop? So social media was one of those things slash habits. Is there anything else?
Well, I quit cheating on my husband, and that was that was a big habit, I guess. I had to start really being aware of the things that I was doing. I had to quit lying to people. I was a compulsive liar
Mhm.
because I never believed that anybody thought myself was worthy. So
Mhm.
I made up a person and I sold that person. And that's exhausting. And I never really truly believed any of my relationships because I wasn't selling myself. I was selling a made up version of me that was quite pretty on a shelf. Actually, it wasn't. That's the big secret. The version I was peddling was not that pretty. The real one was.
Mhm.
And so I had to quit lying to people.
Yeah. And I guess lying to yourself as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm.
Most importantly was lying to myself because that just propagated all the other lies.
Mhm. So you mentioned something that is very close to me. I think I shared just in the beginning of the interview that I took a social media break, and I champion that a lot. I tell people to take those breaks because it's social media is a world unto its own, and you can get consumed in it. You can look at everybody and think everybody's life is going perfect and yours is just not going anywhere, and it can really drive you into a spiral. So you did say that you only do like 10 minutes of it and then you come off. What are some of the other tips for persons who like being on social media and they do feel sad sometimes or whatever? What are some tips that you can give them to, I guess, manage social media in a healthy way or use it in a healthy way?
I think I've got it in a healthy realm. Some days are worse than others, but I'm a big fan of Reddit because it's not something personal. It's still
Hmm.
sort of a social media format, but I don't know anybody on Reddit, so I'm not emotionally triggered because so and so went and bought this new car, or the Joneses have their new house, or you know, someone just got engaged. Like, I don't have those pangs of jealousy because I'm on a different format.
Hmm.
It's the same with Instagram. I can scroll and scroll and scroll, and it's not as interactive. So that's something that helps me. Is the less interaction I have, the better I can manage it.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing is, it's all fake. It's all fake. Social media is an agenda that is being pushed. If it were factual, it wouldn't be as popular because it's entertainment.
Hmm.
It's it's not real. If every other post you're seeing is an algorithm that's trying to sell you something to make you feel good about yourself, you really have to question the reasoning behind the device. Um, Especially with, Facebook and Instagram and their algorithms to get you to buy, click here. You want those leggings because he's gonna like your butt. The leggings don't do anything for your butt. It's just your butt. Like these products are meant to make you feel like, well, if you buy them, you're empowered, and if you don't, you're less than. There's
Mm-hmm.
an agenda, and if you can separate the fact that there's an agenda from the other parts of it, it gives you a healthy skepticism. Why is this being targeted to me? Well, somebody developed an algorithm that says you want people to like this part of you, even though that doesn't really mean anything, because in 10 years, no one's butt's going to look as good as they do right now because we're all
Mm-hmm.
going to be a decade older. It's not worth the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be able to separate the reality from the social media facade, I guess. I agree with that.
So, how long of a break did you take?
I was off, well, I gave it up for Lent, so 40 days and 40 nights. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I only
How
slipped
down to
like
you?
I only slipped like, well, I didn't slip and go into my personal page. I did kind of look on a few people's profiles while I was out, using one of my business pages. But that's it. That's all. Not too much.
Exercise that muscle to not check
Hmm.
your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever feed you partake in. It's all
Yeah.
it's all cyclical. It's all just a practice.
Hmm. Because it's like muscle memory, I still pick my phone up and like on memory go into the Twitter app, but the good thing is I logged out of all of my social networks. So I still do it from time to time, but I replace that action, try to replace the action with something else. So that, I guess that would be my tip, instead of, try sometimes to break up that routine. So instead of waking up in the morning and immediately checking Instagram or checking Twitter, I start checking the news app, because that's really why I check Twitter, is to see what's going on. So instead, I try to check the news apps and the news sites and stuff like that to get my news now. So that works out for me, I think. That definitely does work out. So your book is called Comfortably Uncomfortable. The Road to Happiness Isn't Always Paved. So you get really up close and personal and raw in the book. And as I was mentioning earlier, it started out with the very first line and it kept going that way, which is something I appreciated, because a lot of these books tend to be fluff and I have figured it all out. And here are the 10 steps that you need to follow to get to happiness, which is not real. It's happiness is not a destination. And I loved that your book never made it feel that way. It always, in a sense, presented it like happiness is a journey. It's different things. It's not a one thing. It's not a one size fits all. So, I appreciated that about your book, first of all. And then there were a lot of uncomfortable things that you had to go through. So let's talk about some of that. What was the most uncomfortable or difficult change that you had to make on your journey so far?
The hardest one has just been learning to love myself
Mm-hmm.
because for so long I didn't, and it feels really hokey. You had mentioned earlier your friend with his affirmations. He's like, "Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
don't call it that." But it's real, you have to constantly build yourself up, and if you're not used to it, it's it's you're a girl. It's like going to the gynecologist. It's like, yeah, we got to do this, but do we have to?
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to build yourself up if you don't have that mentality. And so, you know, I have a sign in my bedroom that says "You're beautiful." I wake up, I see it, and it's there every day. And it's not because it was a cute sign. It's because I am, and I keep practicing that belief of it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Even on hard days, I still have to practice that belief. It's exhausting building someone from nothing, because once I peeled away everything that I had built that was nothing but lies, I didn't know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
When you come out brand new and you have nothing to come off of, and you go, "Hi, I'm Jacquelyn," but you don't know who that person is, that's terrifying. Because what if my husband doesn't love me anymore because I'm not that person? What if my best best friend never talks to me again because I'm not that person.
Mhm.
I had to build a resiliency within myself to go, you know what? If it's meant to happen and those people are meant to be in my life, they will still love me while I go through this journey.
Mhm.
And I have the most amazing people in my life because of it. And they are the best cheerleaders. And they know my struggle. And I came to them with my struggle and I said, look, I didn't give you the real me. I hope you'll accept me as I'm figuring out who I am.
Mhm.
And that's really scary. And that's the thing. It's okay to be scared as an adult. It's okay to start over. It's okay to not have the answers as long as you're willing to try. And
Mhm.
you're gonna make mistakes. I will be the first one to admit it. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm trying every day. And when something doesn't work, I evaluate it and I go back at it and I say, how can I do it better? And there's resources. Talking with my husband was a hard one because I had this vision in my head that he was this person and he was all powerful and he had control over everything and I was entirely dependent. And it was all in my head. So when
Mhm.
it came time to talk to him, and I was so scared, I linked to a page. It's a worksheet called Dear Man, and it's part of dialectical behavioral therapy, which is this great type of therapy where you learn how to interact in the world without letting your emotions dominate your outcomes.
Mhm.
And so I posted on that page and I used it. And I would literally sit in front of my husband with this worksheet and go, okay, this is what I'm going to talk to you about. This is what's bothering me. This is how I want to address it. This is the outcome that I would like. And I felt like a second grader in the classroom giving a book report. But I tell you, practicing it and having it written down on paper, I never broke down in tears. And
Mhm.
anytime prior to that, every conversation ended up with me crying because I couldn't control my emotions. My reactions to the interaction were always so much worse than they had to be. And so being that uncomfortable and forcing myself to be that uncomfortable and that scared, I had to find tools to make the interactions positive ones so that I would keep repeating them over and over again until they weren't big and scary things
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Trust when you get raw and you have to lay you bearing yourself to people in your life. Sometimes it can be scary. But I do like that worksheet, that idea, and I'm going to actually look at it to see, where I can apply it in my life. Because I mean, the people in my life that I'm very close to, I have no problem opening up to them. But there are times when I have to have difficult conversations with other people, and I don't want to do it because it's going to make me uncomfortable, and then they're going to be uncomfortable. I don't want them to be mad at me and all of that. So that's a good tool. I definitely will check that out. But going back to your book, you segment the book into 3 sections. Tell me what the sections are and why you decided to segment them that way.
anymore. So I'm going to be entirely honest with you. The, the book itself is a bit of verbal diarrhea because it's not a chapter by chapter, start to finish. We basically segmented it out into 3 sections just for readability.
Mm-hmm.
The book is not meant to be a how to, it's meant to be a resource tool. So every chapter is going to hit on something different. And you may pick it up and start in chapter 7, or you may pick it up and start in chapter 25. And it doesn't matter where you start in the book, you're going to get something from it. And the great thing is it's not a one and done. As you start to grow and you go through these things and you start to make these positive changes, other things will open up.
Mm-hmm.
When you plant flowers, not all of the buds are open all at once.
Yeah.
Eventually, other ones will open, and those will be new interactions that you have to learn how to deal with. So you can go back and go, she said something about this. And you pick it back up and you start over again. Every time you read it, it's a different book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't have a publishing company, I did this all myself. And so it was more of I was using professionals to guide me so that it wasn't just a big blog. It was actually a book that you could hold and take with you and share. Um, I love that question because no one's ever asked it before. I've never had anyone ask about the structure of the book, so I'm very excited about that. And I'm excited to tell you that there is no rhyme or reason. It was because a professional suggested it to me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to write a book, but as I was going through all of this, I went, I've done all this homework, and there's probably someone out there who needs this help. who doesn't know where to go, and I can share it with them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I'm going to do it. So I didn't plan on being an author. It just sort of manifested from all the work that I did. And I went, I have this thing and I can help others. And that's all I want to do because life is so short and it's really challenging when you think that you're all alone. And I
Yeah.
promise you that no one is alone. And there are people that care about you, even when it doesn't feel like there are. And there are resources available to you, even if you don't have the means. I know how lucky I am that I could afford a life coach, that I could go to my doctor and get a prescription for an antidepressant. I realize that not everybody has those resources,
Mm-hmm.
but there are free resources out there. I will often share them on Instagram, on my Facebook page, because I think everybody should have access to tools, regardless of where you're at in life.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that will help you, and it's okay to be scared when you ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I asked you about the structure of the book because I found it really interesting because it pointed me to where I need to read based on where I am and what I need right now. So the first part of it is clawing out from rock bottom. It clearly tells me like if I'm at rock bottom and I want to know how to claw out, that's where I need to be reading first, right? And then the second part, taking back my life. This is where I'm gonna hear about what you did, right? I'm gonna hear about your story, where you were at rock bottom, see if I can relate. Is this somewhere I need to be reading? Can this person actually help me right now? And then you're transforming pain into power. It's telling me, okay, I've made it this far. How can I continue on that journey? So I felt like it was important for me to hear where your mind is at. And it actually makes me feel a lot better that it wasn't a planned out thing, that you didn't plan on doing that. That it just happened because, well,
No,
somebody
there
suggested it,
was
but
no plan.
mm-hmm.
But I was open to it because, again, I'm not a professional author. I guess I am now. I don't know. It's weird.
You are now.
Um, but basically, I am now. Uh, I swear. But no, it was one of those things where when I started it, I had no idea how to write a book, and
Mm-hmm.
so I found a mentor who said, "Just write everything." And so that's what I would do. I would sit down, I'd carve out an hour, and I would write everything that was on my heart and what I was going through in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
The chapter on suicide, I was sitting in a hotel room in Florida because I had a wedding the next day and I
Mm-hmm.
was missing my son's birthday. And mentally, I was back in that moment. Not that I wanted to kill myself, but that those feelings needed to be addressed at that moment. And so that's what I did. So
Mm-hmm.
everything that's in that book was literally happening at some point in that journey of the actual dialogue. And it's been really neat to watch it evolve and to have other people go, I thought I was the only one, and
Mm-hmm.
to see that it's not, and to see someone who doesn't have it all together but is so relatable. I will never come to you and say I've got the answers, because that's a lie and I don't do that no more. I'm still figuring this out, and I love getting to share the journey, and I love getting to share where I'm at now and what I'm doing now with it, and know that, just because the book ends doesn't mean the story ends.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't have to work as hard now. Now it's about maintenance. And I think that's a whole other journey. Once you get to that point of healthy and functional, how do you maintain it? Maybe that'll be the next one. I don't know. Writing
Yeah.
a book is really hard.
I've heard. So I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I want to do it again. This is way more fun.
Maybe just, vlog about it. You never know. Podcast about it. There's so many
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah. We'll see. It's maybe once the kid's in college and I've got a little more free time. They say
Yeah.
toddlers are attentive seeking, but my teenager needs still quite a bit from me. So we'll see.
So tell us, where can we've been talking about this book and your story for a while now. So I'm very sure that people are listening and they're like, okay, get to it.
So
Where
where do
can
I
we get
get
a
it
book?
now?
So tell us, where do we get it now?
So it is available on Amazon. So you can order the book in print. The cover photo, my son actually took that photo for me, bless his heart. He's
Oh,
my biggest cheerleader. Yeah, because I'll be real with him. So that's how we got a real cover photo. Fun little backstory. But it's also available on Audible, so you can download it and I can whisper all those positive, wonderful things in your ear.
mm-hmm.
It's available for free on Kindle Unlimited, so you can download it to your e reader. Like I said, you can get it on print in Amazon.com. We have the Instagram, which has lots of helpful stuff at Grown Up Growing Pains, where I continue the story and I give helpful tips and resources, everything from crisis hotlines to how to figure out if you've got breast cancer and things like that, because knowledge is power, and I want to empower everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then at grownupgrowingpains.com, you'll actually be able to find resources that I used for my success, as well as other podcasts, including this one that you can hear me.
Oh, nice. So thank you so very much for being so honest and open to sharing your story. This was a refreshing conversation. It's a nice like a chat, and I think that you've definitely shared a lot of tips with us that's going to be helpful to somebody listening. And I really do hope that somebody hearing your story finds the courage to dig deep within themselves and find out who they really are, and start on that journey to happiness, even if the road is not paved, as you say. The road to happiness is not paved. Well, you've definitely been a great one to talk to, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I want everyone to be brave and strong and find their happy. And I am honored that I get the opportunity to help.
Thank you so very much for watching this week's episode. I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something from Jacquelyn's story. Be sure to go out and grab her book. It's available on Amazon, Audible, and for your Kindle or your e-reader. As well as, I would love for you guys to subscribe to this channel and leave us a comment below and tell us what you thought about the episode, as well as to turn on your notification bell so that you'll know whenever we post a new episode. Thanks so much again for watching, and have a great week.